talk about the impact of the lockdown, which is now getting imposed by various states, the impact of that on demand, economy, and even for big sectors like auto, which are extremely dependent on supply chain for the entire manufacturing, it gives me great pleasure to bring on board the chairman of Maruti, Mr. RC Bhargava. Mr. Bhargava, good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us. Here's hoping everything is fine, safe, and everything is okay with your friends and family.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Bhargava, what do you think could be the impact of the curfew which today the Delhi government has announced and what Maharashtra government has announced a few days ago?
You know, I'm not at all convinced that things like curfews and the kind of lockdown which the Maharashtra government has done are the right ways of dealing with the situation which has developed. I don't think that actions which stop legitimate economic activities are at all necessary in order to curtail the growth of the COVID pandemic. I think both these steps are, in a sense, kind of overkill in trying to deal with the problem because there doesn't seem to be a clear understanding of the causes of the problem and what is the right solution to these problems. So I think these steps which have been taken in terms of curfews and lockdowns will hurt a lot of people. It will maybe have a temporary effect on dealing with the pandemic, but by itself, I don't think it's the right solution at all.
So what is the right solution, sir? I mean, everybody knows that to avoid COVID, you need to mask yourself, maintain social distancing, don't indulge yourself in a public place, maintain a 6 feet distance. Those protocols are perhaps known to everybody, yet there is a reluctance in terms of us abiding that. So what is the solution according to you?
You know, there are two ways of dealing with this. One is clearly more and more education and to make people understand that by not following the protocols, they are not only hurting themselves and taking the chance of getting affected by COVID and therefore endangering themselves and their families. And if they have elders in the families, then they are the more vulnerable people, making them liable to some serious consequences. But they are affecting the health of a large number of other people because each affected person spreads the disease to all kinds of estimates, but let's take any figure between 50 to 80% people. In addition, it hurts the national economy. It makes the country weaker. It hurts the poor people. And I think people need to be repeatedly told that it is not only about you, it's about everybody else. Along with this, I think there has to be a much, much stricter and, let's say, a more effective way of penalizing those who do not follow this. For example, if somebody organizes a function or has a place of entertainment of any kind, and in that place, the people are there without following the distance protocol and the mask protocol, then the owner of that particular place or the organizer of that place should be the person who gets the maximum punishment. And it should not be a minor kind of 500 rupee fine or 1,000 rupee fine. That won't hurt anybody. You look at what happens in many countries, the fines and the punishment for violating protocol are very severe. In this country, we don't think that people should be punished for violating only a simple thing like not wearing a mask. But we don't seem to understand not wearing a mask is a huge hit on
Mr. Bhargav, when the lockdown was announced same time last year, the economy in a sense collapsed and it took almost 2 quarters for demand to come back. What is your understanding of how the supply chain would be disrupted? Because auto as industry, it relies on demand, which is on the customer end, but it also dependent on the supply chain when it comes to manufacturing.
Both sides, Nikunj, the supply chain means a whole lot of producers all over the country. And today, Delhi has done it, Maharashtra has done it. I don't know tomorrow who else will do it. And if that disrupts the supply chain, production will come to a halt, and you look at the consequences of that on employment, on incomes, on economic activities, on tax and revenues, and all of that. And all because some people are not willing to follow protocol. And the second part of it is that when you shut down business, whether in a protocol or in a lockdown, you shut down the sale pipeline. And there will be no purpose producing cars if you can't have the sales outlets open, the service outlets open. How will people manage their vehicles if there's no place to go for getting the workshop attention done or where they buy the vehicles? So in all these, like shutting down the pipeline of sales, you're shutting down production in a way. So these things have to be understood. I'm not sure if the policymakers understand all of what the consequences will be to the economy.
But based on what you've understood how the lockdown would be effective in Maharashtra, Delhi again does not have manufacturing setup. Haryana, as of now, there is no lockdown. How much of your supply chain, in a sense, are getting disturbed?
At the moment, I think we are okay because after the experience of last lockdown, we had started to build inventories. I haven't checked with our supply chain people yet as to how long we are good for. But for a few days at least, I'm sure we don't have a problem because of the inventory buildup. But if one doesn't know, one loses confidence in the administration because it creates a lot of uncertainty about going ahead in the business.
Every time there's a lockdown, Mr. Bhargav, we have to deal with the issue of daily wage earners and migrant laborers. Now, Maruti also has contract employees. Are you getting a sense that they're getting a bit edgy, that reverse migration could start again, which again could be a big concern for next couple of months?
Yet, because fortunately, Haryana has not done this kind of thing yet. And I hope they'll understand that doing this is not in anybody's interest, including the state interest. And there are more, sharper tools for dealing with the pandemic than this kind of approach of shutting down everything.
Mr. Bhargav, what you're echoing is perhaps the industry opinion as well. Every time we've interacted to the industry captains, they are also saying that the lockdown will murder the economy. The economic consequences could be far and could be very large. Do you think this, in a sense, is also something which global buyers and global investors would take notice of? One side, the government is opening up PLI scheme. They're giving you guarantees in terms of supply chain. And then you've got this start and stop kind of a policy arrangement.
I think they're already taking note of it. You look and see what's happening to the stock market. The foreign investors are taking money out of the stock market because they have no faith left in how the industry will go in India, because they don't trust that the administration in many states will understand the importance of keeping economic activity going.
Mr. Bhargav, Mr. Bajaj came on our channel a week ago and he said Maharashtra government is trying to improve things in 14 days. What can they do in 14 days which they've not managed to do in 14 months when they had 14 months to prepare? Everybody knew that COVID was not over. It is just that complacency kicked in. Do you think right now we are in a sense suffering because of this whole complacency and chaltat attitude? Because the window between the first wave and the second wave, if not 14 months, was almost 8 to 9 months.
No, I agree with what Mr. Bajaj said, that there was enough evidence from the whole world that a second wave does come. And it comes because when the first wave dies down, people become complacent, and there is even a greater disregard of all the safety protocols. The virus also has apparently mutated, has probably become more infectious. And so a more infectious virus system, coupled with the much larger people who feel that they can brave the risks of getting COVID, and you have a big second wave like the one we have. Now, all these months, I think the government should have made sure that people understood the dangers of COVID, not only to themselves, but as I said, to everybody else, and strictly followed enforcement protocols to see that everybody followed the need for wearing masks and keeping distances. They should have avoided these crowds of people in places. Okay, I understand that certain kinds of entertainment places would probably go under with this, if you didn't have crowds, but you can't have that. That is the area where there's a big risk. If you cannot have an entertainment place where masks cannot be worn, then you can't have that entertainment place, frankly. I'm sorry for that business, but it can't, in the present circumstances, survive.
We understand that, sir. I mean, the situation is so grim that is the way things are. I mean, and just when you thought that things were normalizing, here comes the second wave and the business is just going to get completely knocked out. It's a business at the end of the day which creates employment and which takes care of livelihoods. Mr. Bhargav, so are you preparing your manufacturing units in Haryana for a second lockdown? Have you started putting some motion and work into place already? Do you see that coming?
No, I am hoping that Haryana will not do that. I think Haryana administration is going to be more, and I believe they have a better understanding of what is required to be done. So I really think that Haryana will not follow the example of Delhi or Maharashtra.
Mr. Bhargav, I distinctly remember same time last year we had a conversation and where you specifically said, look, Maruti is a engineering company and our skills are engineering and we are ready to develop a ventilator. We discussed it. I think we spent some time, maybe half a day, half a week discussing that Maruti has engineering capability to create a ventilator. What is the update on that?
You know, we did our job. The orders which were placed with the company we were working with, all those orders were completed. The company was fully equipped with the vendors and everything else to go ahead with production. The other day, I saw a message from the managing director of this ventilator company, writing to government seeking help that half of the ventilators, roughly, which they have prepared, have not yet been lifted by anybody. And they were part of the orders which had been placed on them. So it looks like the demand for ventilators is not high. I can understand that. But I think it's a huge setback for entrepreneurs in this country if people are given orders and then after the production takes place, and all of us worked hard, really our people worked overtime to get these ventilators made. And we met all the changes which were required at that time so that these ventilators could meet the requirements of the medical profession. And now some 500 odd ventilators are still lying in stock.
Well, thank you for bringing it out. I mean, this is something which frankly, for an entrepreneur who's putting risk capital to work to in a difficult time, this is something which needs to be taken care of. As simple as that. It's a capitalist world. Mr. Bhargav, has the consumer sentiment suffered when you look at your numbers, especially in the state of Maharashtra? Because last 3 weeks, the number has started spiking up. So if you look at how things have moved in the month of April, I'm not looking at a specific number, but let's say number of footfalls, number of inquiries, number of cars being sold. Has that started coming down?
I don't have state-wise figures with me. At least I've not looked at state-wide figures. But the all India figures, both of inquiries as well as of orders, so far have not shown any downward trend.
But if this thing continues, if more states adopt lockdown, whether it is partial or weekend, do you see that numbers will start coming down?
If a lot of states do this, certainly the numbers will come down. No question about it. But I hope that
when the auto demand started coming back, right,
was 3 years ago. It's not as if we are in a very robust growth story, not at all. The demand and the sale figures are still below what it was in 1890.
Right. Mr. Bhargav, the first wave, there was a lot of fear and the number of cases were low. Right now, there is fear, but there is understanding, but the number of cases are high. Now, this is not an all India lockdown, but if I look at the sheer number which will impact sentiment, behavior and other aspects, I see a difference there, sir. What is your sense?
The numbers are certainly large. I mean, they have reached record numbers, but that I think is inevitable if a larger number of people are going out and exposing themselves. And it's certainly affecting sentiment of investors. And as I said, the stock market is, which was going pretty bullish at one time. Now, the last few days, when this COVID has started going the way it is going, I think there's a great deal of nervousness amongst investors about what's going to happen.
But when things started normalizing, Mr. Bhargav, the pent-up demand did make a comeback. I distinctly remember you had mentioned that, look, COVID in a sense is again a reminder for everybody that we need to focus on personal mobility, do not use public transport, buy your own car, but stick to your personal transport. That was an idea which in a sense led to a comeback in demand. Do you see a similar situation happening now?
I think that situation is very much still there, and that is one of the factors driving demand. I think there is still a great deal of requirement of people wanting personal transport.
At what point in time, Mr. Bhargav, do you think the current wave will start having an impact on sentiment, demand, and also auto sector per se? Right now, you just indicated to our viewers that, look, the demand has not dropped. But next 2-3 weeks, if things do not improve, is there a serious possibility of demand coming down?
I'm hoping that after all this kind of discussion which is taking place, and I think a lot of people in government realize that they have to now get the protocols implemented much more strictly. I hope a number of state governments will understand this and make a serious effort both at educating the people as well as tightening the enforcement system. And if that happens, I think we will see that this spurt in the cases of COVID-19 will start tapering off quite fast. It's not something which is not controllable. I think it is very much controllable if people follow protocols. You see the number of countries which have managed to almost finish having the disease and smaller countries too. But the principle remains the same. Whether it's a large country or a small country, that the action has to be done at a localized level. At each local level, the enforcement has to be as good as it's anywhere else. And if you enforce this and educate people so that you don't have to do too much coercion, then I think the COVID will come under control very, very quickly.
Can I say that you are in favor of not complete lockdowns, but maybe micro-containment zones, they need to be locked out?
That is only to prevent people from areas which have high infection going out and infecting others. But I don't think the containment zones are very large now. Unlike last time, the containment areas are very small containment areas. And certainly one of the ways of controlling the spread of COVID is to see that people who are infected or likely to have been infected are quarantined and do not go out. So that is what the containment does. But simultaneously, just stop people collecting at places, having functions, not wearing masks, not following the distance protocol. Why can't we stop that? I don't understand. What is the big thing which will happen in India if for a couple of months people stop this kind of socializing?
Well, Mr. Bhargav, final question. The last time Maruti exhibited the engineering skills when you indicated that you're prepared to come out with a ventilator. Anything else which the stable or the house of Maruti is planning to come on the medical front this time?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Last time when you said that Maruti was prepared to, make a ventilator, and when you provided the whole architecture and the design, because that's a skill and capability, is there anything we should expect similarly from Maruti based on engineering skills?
The ventilator design and architecture was of the entrepreneur who had set up this company. What we helped was in getting the component supplies made in the right kind of volumes and setting up the systems for their assembly, testing, so that from making 1 or 2 ventilators a day, he could step up and do a few hundred ventilators a day. Our skill was in mass production. We are not designers of ventilators.
Okay, fair point. Well, Mr. Bhargav, really appreciate your time. Thank you for frankly outlining your thoughts as to what needs to be done, how the economic lockdown is going to cost us. So thank you for your valuable thoughts and lovely input. Stay safe, and I certainly hope to see much more of you going forward.
Thank you very much.